Tonight, some disturbing news from Georgia. The new front in the shameful nationwide attempt by the GOP to suppress the vote. The Secretary of State, a Republican, has been caught on tape warning about minority voters turning out at the polls.
In closing, I just wanted to tell you real quick, after we get through this runoff, the Democrats are working hard, doing all these stories about them, registering all these minority voters that are out there and others that are sitting on the sidelines. If they can do that, they can win these elections in November.
This is blatantly partisan. It's a blatantly partisan comment from the state's top election official. He then went on to urge Republicans to match those efforts.
We've got to do the exact same thing. And I would encourage all of you, if you have an Android or Apple device, download that app. Maybe your goal is to register one new Republican voter.
This is the same person who's investigating Georgia's largest Democratic voter registration effort, accusing the group of committing voter fraud. There's a concerted effort on the right to make voting more difficult for certain folks in Georgia. State Republicans have already cut 24 early voting from the calendar this year. And on Tuesday, Republican State Senator Fran Miller wrote an angry response to a new early voting station in DeKalb County. Quote, "Now we are to have Sunday voting at South DeKalb Mall just prior to the election. This location is dominated by African-American shoppers and is near several large African-American mega churches. We will try to eliminate this election law loophole in January."
Today is another day, the 14th day of this trial. The state just rested their case, and now it goes to the defense, Shaveen King. On behalf of one of the Quitman 10+2, Lula Smart. Now, after 14 days, I have a question for you all. The taxpayers in the state of Georgia does not know what has taken place in this very high-profile voting rights case, because no TV station, no radio station, no newspaper have reported anything that took place in the courtroom, because we who attended didn't see them in the courtroom. I have an individual right here, Brother George, just like myself. He has been coming over here, and I wish other people in Brooks County would attend this very high-profile case. Now I'm going to ask a question. The 10+2 case that started in 2010 is the new Ferguson after the Ferguson. And so now the question is, what will the Congressional Caucus say when they stand up to tell people around America and around the world, for that matter, that they care about voting rights? How can the Democratic Party say they are concerned about voting rights and your right to vote, the Republican Party, the Independent Party, the Green Party, and even you? And one more, all our active duty, retired, disabled, and ordinary veterans, how can they say that they are concerned about voting rights in their particular states, but yet they cannot even Google the Quitman 10+2 and educate themselves at what Representative Tyrone Brooks is calling a new landmark foundational case along the lines for voting rights in the United States of America, but it seems as if, though, in the state of Georgia, our leaders, Governor Nathan Deal, Secretary of State Brian P. Kemp, Georgia Attorney General Sam Olens, and not even Eric Holder of the Justice Department, because we sent, when I say we, not me, but the concerned citizens of the state of Georgia, under the leadership of the Honorable Reverend Joseph Lowry, the Honorable Representative Tyrone Brooks, former Georgia State Conference President Edward Dubose, on behalf of Charles Steele of the SCLC and Mostella, we sent Eric Holder 2 DVDs, and you can see that on within the next 5 to 6 videos that's already posted. In fact, you will see Secretary of State Brian P. Kemp's own investigator who came over to Avery's church. I recorded it all because I was there. They gave complaints. I gave them the DVDs. I signed the release form for my DVDs, and the Secretary of State still haven't responded to those videos, nor the valid complaints by the citizens of Brooks County, nor has he answered questions about J.C. Cunningham, who was running for state rep. And so it seemed as if though the Secretary of State is not even concerned about voting rights here in the state of Georgia. And since we sent these DVDs also to the Justice Department under Eric Holder, we haven't heard nothing from him. We also sent DVDs, to change the subject a little bit, along with Representative Tyrone Brooks, to Eric Holder about the murders at Morris Ford Bridge in 1946. So now I'm going to continue to do what I do because it must be done. We all can't play the ostrich head duck game. And that's when we bury our heads in the sand like the legend concerning the ostrich bird and pretend that we are in heaven while we are catching hell, and our children, grandchildren, and coming generations are going deeper into hell because we don't stand up like we should. Look, this is the Ghetto Free Press. It's not about this video. I want you to watch the other hundreds of videos on this playlist. This playlist didn't start last month. This playlist started in 2010 when I got the call about them being arrested. And it's all been documented. You don't have to guess about it. It's all been documented. I walked the streets. The 84-year-old woman in Marvin says she would never, ever vote again because of the way the G.B.R. intimidated her. Eric Holder, you know about it because you got a copy of it. Once again, this is the Ghetto Free Press. George Boston Ryan saying bye-bye. Greetings. This is the Ghetto Free Press, and I'm George Boston Rhines, and once again, today is the 15th day of this Lula Smart trial. In Brooks County and in the city of Whitman, the Honorable Judge Gary C. McCorvey is the presiding judge, and of course we have a jury, make up 7 blacks and the remainder whites. When I started out to cover this trial of the Whitman 10+2, we've been waiting for 4 years, and this is the 3rd trial of Miss Lula Smart. The first trial was a mistrial. The second trial was a mistrial. And now the 3rd trial is beginning to look as funny as the other 2. First of all, I want to say that it is indeed amazing to say the least, that here in South Georgia, the state of Georgia in the United States of America, this is the only newspaper here in Quitman, Georgia. It's called the Quitman Free Press. And can you imagine a very high profile case dealing with voters' rights, not in Afghanistan, Pakistan, or Iran, but where I stand. And today is Thursday. There is no mention of this Quitman 10+2 trial with Lula Smart on the front page. In fact, I do not know how God or Jesus or Muhammad could orchestrate such a diabolical plan to totally exclude everything that has taken place in this Brooks County courthouse from August the 19th until today. It seems as if though there are those who don't want the general public to know what happened surrounding the Quitman 10+2. Yesterday, the prosecution rested their case. Today, the defense took over with Shaveen King. And I tell you, it seems as if though the judge don't want to let the defense have anything into this trial. In other words, prosecution brought everything in they wanted to, said pretty near everything they wanted, for the most part. So we're going to wait, we're going to watch. But I just don't understand how, in 2014, how all the news media networks can just ignore this high-profile voting rights issue that started way before December 21st when they were arrested. Google the Quitman 10+2. Greetings. Today is September the 12th, 2014. And this is in Brooks County, Georgia, in front of the Brooks County Courthouse. Once again, today is Friday, and the case of the Quitman 10+2 with Lula Smart ends another week. This is the 4th week. Yet, there is something that's very strange in the state of Georgia with the news media network. Al Sharpton, Victor Blackwell, 60 minutes and 48 hours, you should be here. There is something strange going on here in the state of Georgia. Al Sharpton reported on MSNBC that Georgia's Secretary of State, Brian P. Kemp, made statements concerning black African American voting and the voting process, and is filling up Facebook. It lets you know that something is seriously wrong here in the state of Georgia when someone who's supposed to be over voting rights can make a statement about African Americans registering voters and we can lose the elections in November. There is something that's very strange. Men in the courtroom as they came out for the entire 15 days. People are asking a question. Where's the news media? Why cannot at least the local newspaper, the closest metro city to Quitman, Valdosta, Georgia, Thomasville, Georgia, why is there no news media coverage? It seems as if though this election of July and November 2010 runs deep all the way up to Atlanta and perhaps Washington, D.C. Now, back on point. Yesterday, when Larry Cunningham, a member on the school board of education, he answered questions, but when it boiled down to the fact of him going more into detail in terms of why he gave $100 to a private investigator or to Dick Mitchell to hire a private investigator, well, the judge would not let certain parts of that information into the case. Many of us was like in shock and awe. Also, Nancy Dennard, one of the Quitman 10 plus 2, took the stand. She spoke very powerful. She was on point. Even the judge turned and asked the prosecutors, did the G.B.R. or the Secretary of State's office interview Nancy Dennard? Because she seemed to have a handle and she knew exactly what was happening, and she was professional enough and educated enough to tell it like it is. We have watched Mr. Boone in the courtroom. Many of us believe that he's telling something that is not true, and moreover, parts of it came out that we know was not true. And so after 15 days, we must ask a question now. Where does this case go from here? Where? Now, one other interesting thing today is that the prosecutor, Miss Brion, I think her name is, she got very emotional. She threw her folder on the floor. And of course, I thought that attorneys were supposed to be more professional than what we saw in the courtroom today. And in addition to that, Miss Lula Smart, she also took the stand. She answered questions, but it seems as if though Miss Brion showed little respect to this witness and victim of what many of us believe is a continuation of the Secretary of State and others in the state of Georgia and across the nation perhaps to suppress the black African American vote. And perhaps Al Sharpton said it best. It is a disgrace what we see in the state of Georgia today. I'm not trying to be a news media. I'm not trying to be a news reporter. But there's one thing about it. After putting 21 years in the United States Armed Forces, I got to say something. I cannot sit back and dip and play the ostrich head game. And the ostrich head duck game is when you bury your head in the sand and pretend that you're in heaven with all your backside out. And so, I'm calling on 60 Minutes. I'm calling on Dateline, 48 Hours, Eric Holder, the Justice Department. After all, Eric Holder already know about this Quitman 10 case. The Georgia Attorney General, there was a time when we could call the Attorney General. We could call the Department of Justice. We could call our Congressional Black Caucus. We could call the civil rights organizations, and they would be here. But there's something strange that's happening in our world today. It seems as if though nobody cares about anybody anymore. Yet when the time comes for them to call our sons and our daughters to serve in the armed forces in foreign nations of the world to defend the rights of others, we gladly rush off to fight these wars. But when wars such as this take place here in Brooks County, the news media don't think enough of our active duty military personnel, disabled veterans, retired military veterans, and ordinary veterans and American people. We don't care enough to at least show good faith. Even if the Quitman Free Press was not going to report it, just for facelift, they ought to be in the courtroom. If ABC didn't want to report it because they have already received their instructions, they at least ought to be here as a good face. NBC, if they have received their instructions not to cover this by some higher-ups, maybe those in the clique and among the slicks, just out of good journalism, they ought to send somebody by to cover the Quitman 10+2 case. After all, they've been waiting over 4 years to have their day in court. So we must ask the question, have we ever heard of a speedy trial in the United States of America? Have we ever heard of a speedy trial here in Brooks County? Haven't finished yet. What about Oprah Winfrey? What about, what that guy named, Tyler Perry? If he can put all these other movies on to stimulate our circulation and put us in a thrill and kill, why can't he send some of his reporters down? Or to at least interview somebody? Well, this is nothing new, so I'm not amazed by this. If you go back to the Kendrick Johnson case, that's still pending in Valdosta in Lowndes County. Go back to my criminal trespass that still haven't been resolved. Go to the mayor, Linda Harris in Meigs, Georgia, the black elected mayor, arrested twice under 2 criminal trespass warnings. The council walked out on her. Then from there, I was called to Dawson, Georgia. Newly elected black mayor shot 6 times and left in his front yard for dead. His neighbor came over. Today he's still in office, and I understand he's running again. Then I was called to Gordon, Georgia. Mayor ran Whippoorwick. But you don't hear nothing about that on MSNBC and Al Sharpton. 60 Minutes won't talk about that. ABC won't talk about that. They'll tell you about a cat trapped in a tree or a dog that got ran over by an 18-wheeler. But when it comes down to these situations, Lumpkin, Georgia, where Mayor Charles Gibson was called a nigger by a fellow council member, a white female. Nobody have come in. Secretary of State, Governor Nathan Deal, Georgia Attorney General Sam Olens, nobody is saying nothing about it. So all of us can't go to sleep at the wheel. All of us cannot go to sleep at the wheel. And so I have counted at least 11 cities where black, newly elected black mayors are catching pure heaven on the backside of hell. And yet, nobody says anything. It is getting strange, y'all. Then, not to mention, I sent a letter to the Honorable Judge Gary C. McCorvey to record in the courtroom. And he gave me permission to do that. Only to be told, right before the jury come in, that I could not record in the courtroom because there's 10 other cases to be tried. And I didn't argue with that. I don't do that. I abide by the law. But then again, a young lady, as I said a few days ago, gave me this form right here. And you wouldn't believe what this is. Can you believe that there's something strange happening all the way up in the election process? Check this. They talking about Sunday voting just one day in DeKalb County, I believe it is. But the bottom line, every obstacle that can be put in the front of the voters in the state of Georgia, they are doing it. Then I had somebody else to email me to tell me about Sam Olens withholding evidence. And somebody gonna have to pay $10,000. And there are those who saying that Sam Owens need to pay that money from his own pocket and not from the taxpayers. I'm gonna close now, but I just want you all to know I do what I do because I care about you, your children, and coming generations. Isn't it strange that when you sit down at night and you listen to 5 and 6 o'clock news, 11 o'clock news at night, you won't see nothing about none of this. 15 days have passed, and they don't think enough of you in Brooks County, Quit, South Georgia, and the state of Georgia, and the United States of America to even tell you about this very strong voting rights case herein the state of Georgia and in the United States of America. Look at here. Call Al Sharpton and ask him. Call Malik Shabazz in New York. Call Ricky Smiley or Tavis Smiley. Call Victor Blackwell from CNN and ask him, do you know what's going on in Quitman? Call 60 Minutes and ask them. Somebody eventually gonna pick up on this. We are going to pray that God will open up some of these black peoples in positions of leadership, that they'll be concerned about the Quitman 10+2, because it is indeed time. It's time that this voting rights issue be brought to the forefront. Al Sharpton, we need you. Victor Blackwell, we need you. President Barack Obama, we need you in Brooks County. We need you. Oh yes, we need you. And Eric Holder of the Justice Department, you have been given videos and you know what it's all about. And so we are going to look and trust in our God to bring justice not only to the Quitman 10+2, but for all these other people, many of them, that have perished at the hands of law enforcement. It is time now that some type of action be taken. Once again, I'm George Boss Rhyme. This is the Ghetto Free Press. Bye-bye.
Greetings. Today is the 12th day of the Lula Smart alleged voter fraud case that took place in Brooks County, Georgia. And as you know, not a single newspaper reporter, not a single radio reporter, not a single television station has covered a single day concerning this highly publicized profile case that deals with voting rights here in the state of Georgia. And it is amazing to some, as we listen to the questions from people that come from Macon and Atlanta, to witness this third trial by Miss Lula Smart, or rather, she is the victim of Georgia State allegations by District Attorney David Miller, Secretary of State Brian P. Kemp, the G.B.I's, and Governor Nathan Deal. After all, it was Nathan Deal who removed members from the Brooks County Board of Education that was part of the Quitman 10+2. Many people are amazed at how could they have a voting rights case with little to no news media coverage. Listen, I'm not going to talk about Quitman anymore. I want to share with you a couple years ago when I was called to a little town in Willacoochee, Georgia. And I want you to listen to what took place in Willacoochee, Georgia. And be advised that press releases were sent out to the news media. But guess what? They did not show up. No. They did not show up for whatever reason. But the Ghetto Free Press was there. The ghetto free press did not want history buried, lost, or covered up forever. So listen to what the NAACP is saying about voting rights in dealing with the black African American people. And once again, Eric Holder of the Justice Department. The National Democratic Party, the State Democratic Party, all must be on guard, and they must come and review the foundation of these 12 outstanding citizens in Quitman and put the puzzle back together, if it ever was. Once again, Willacoochee, Georgia, they called me just like they did the other news media outlets. They waited on the other news media, and Bobby Worthy said, hey, let's get this press conference on the way. Brother Rhymes is here. He is the press. So let's go. And I did it. And because I recorded, guess what? This history was not lost. And what did the Secretary of State, Brian P. Kemp, say about this? Listen, please.
CP and other concerned citizens in this community tell you their stories because they know more about it than I do. Go ahead.
My name is Reverend Larry O'Hara for the Georgia State Conference of the NAACP. I'm here on the behalf of Mr. Hall. We have a clear case of voter fraud in Willacoochee, Georgia. Number one, Mr. Lace Futch allegedly paid individuals to vote for him. And you know clearly that's against the law. Number two, Mr. Lace Futch allegedly had individuals from Coffee County and Pearson, Georgia to come over and vote for him in the city of Willacoochee. Number three, there are allegations that persons from Pearson, the neighboring city of Willacoochee, voted in the election for Mr. Futch. Now how in the world could anyone from Pearson, Georgia vote in an election in Willacoochee, Georgia? How in the world could someone from Coffee County, the neighboring county, come over and vote in a city election in Willacoochee? How can that be done? This is America. America, the country that I fought 22 years in the military for, and I went for that flag over there, and then I come over here in America and I got to come right back here and fight again in the United States of America. This is not a white America. This is not a black America. When you say that you're American, you don't say you're a black American, or you don't say you're a white American. You don't even say that you're a Mexican American. What you say that you are an American, and that's what you are. And Americans have rights. So let's stand up for our rights. Let's vote for our rights. Mr. Lace Futch should be in jail, for as I'm concerned. The NAACP want to bring this out to everyone, not just in Willacoochee, not just in the state of Georgia, but all over the United States of America. Not South America, not Central America, but the United States of America. Things like that is not supposed to happen here. That is why we do what we do. The NAACP is here for rights, American rights. It don't matter who you are or where you come from. Here in Willacoochee, we want to fix that. We have our Lord and Savior that's above us, sitting up high and looking down low. Right now, we asking him to look down on Willacoochee. Here is Mr. J. Hall. Gary Hall. This is Mr. Gary Hall. Mr. Gary Hall ran for the mayor of the city of Willacoochee. By rights, he should be the mayor, but this voter fraud is holding him back. So now we got to go through all of these laws, good ones and bad ones, laws from maybe as far back as 1800. But we got to go through all of these laws, what we call red tape, to fix this matter. Right now, let's hear from Mr. Hall.
We'll go back to November 8th when the mayor.
This is kvci.blogspot.com. I'm in Willacoochee, Georgia again. I just had to go back because when we think about the country and the time in which we live, I just must get the feel of the sensation and vibrations in the state of Georgia in this particular area anyway. And so in doing that, I got to acknowledge the people who put themselves in the limelight and on the firing line as well. They use their blood, they use their own gas to travel back and forth. So first of all, District Coordinator Larry Lockett, could you just, well, I want all you presidents and former presidents that have served the NAACP, which is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, which was set up in 1909, not just by black folk, but by blacks, white, Jews, and others. So identify yourself starting over here in terms of who you are. Everybody give their name and give your position because you had thought enough to come today. Right.
My name is Ernestine Thomas Stark, and I am the secretary for the Coffee County NAACP branch with 518.
Larry Nixon, President, Coffee County Branch, 5184.
Reverend Ralph Smith, I'm with the Waycross branch, number 5244. President.
Yes, sir.
Reverend Larry O'Hara, District Coordinator 16 of the Georgia State Conference of NAACP.
My name is Larry Lockett. I'm Georgia State Conference District 15 and 18 Coordinator, and also I'm a member of the Waycross Branch NAACP, and a life member.
All right. Anybody else?
My name is Gary Hall. I'm running for Ike Mayor, and I also was Ike the President of the NAACP for Ike County.
All right.
My name is Arthur Brown. I'm a branch from NAACP.
All right. Okay.
My name is Bobby Brown. I'm a member of the Action County NAACP.
Thank you, sir. And you in the back, sir?
Billy Hall, member of Action County NAACP.
Thank you very much. And once again, these are the freedom fighters of the civil rights movement of this era. And we have to understand that just because Dr. King left the scene, and now we understand on his birthday, people in the community come out, eat dinners and eat barbecue chicken and rolled up turtle eggs and talk about how good they are, but unless they are on the firing line, like these people are, your work and your time, in my most humble opinion, as a humble man, is a waste of time. And now, my beautiful brother, give me your final comments to all of this that's going on this afternoon. Before you give me your comment, I want to ask you a question. Was the media notified?
Yes.
Where are they?
I don't know.
Go ahead with make your point.
Okay. Well, this is the end of the meeting, but I'm going to say this here. If you're not, you know there's strength comes in numbers. It only takes one man to start a war, but it takes more to fight the battle.
Yes, sir.
So if you're not a member,
yes, sir.
Join up.
Yes, sir.
You can't do nothing if you don't join. And that's it.
This is kvci.blogspot.com. George Boston Rhymes out of Valdosta, Georgia, the county of Lowndes. And I want to see justice not only here in Willacoochee, I want to see it with the Quitman 10. I do not want the work that Senator Brown did in Brooks County to be a waste. He committed himself to the Quitman 10 along with Tyrone Brooks, Helen Butler, David Lucas, who served 37 years in the General Assembly, and others. Even Reverend Joseph Lowry sent the People's Agenda group to Brooks County, all in support of the Quitman 10. But the South Georgia news media ignored all the great visits and all the great work of these historic legends in our community. I am here as a retired, as my brother O'Hara said, of the United States Armed Forces. I put my life on the line for over 20 years to fight for foreigners that I did not know. And I am determined to fight like hell for my own children and the citizens of the United States of America. And I intend to do that because that's what I do. And I'm doing what I do right now because you have a right to know. Peace be unto you, and bye-bye we go. I'm George Boston Rhymes, a community concerned citizen. While down in Fort St. Joe, Florida with President Lee Touchton of the Valdosta, Lowndes County branch of the NAACP, I received a call. Yes, I received a call from the late Senator Robert Brown, the man who accompanied Representative Tyrone Brooks down to Brooks County in support of the Quitman 10+2, where no news media had a single good thing to say about the Quitman 10+2. They painted their faces all over the newspapers and on TV with mug shots and their little jail uniforms. But thank God for those freedom fighters from the North that came down south, and the fight has been on ever since. And after Robert Brown's death, I had to give him a few words of condolences. And this is what I did. And I'm very proud of the work that this senator did in Brooks County. Listen, and listen well. The news media ignored him down here in South Georgia, but thank God for the Ghetto Free Press. At that time, KVCI, which was keeping Valdosta citizens informed. We did it because we love you then, and we are doing it now because we still love you just as much as I did when I wore my uniform for 21 years in the United States Armed Forces, and I served this nation with pride. Now listen as I talk about the late Senator Robert Brown. Listen, and listen well. I did it because he was worthy of such honor.
Yes, the late Senator Robert Brown had died, and it grieved me dearly. Many will question the manner in which he died, but to this individual, what is more important to me is how he lived his life as a senator, as well as a candidate for mayor of Macon, Georgia. This will be a brief cut in honor of Senator Brown. To me, he was a hero. He should be aligned with Dr. Martin Luther King, Tyrone Brooks, Jesse L. Jackson, and others who traveled that great line of concern for his fellow human beings. But you may ask, Brother Ryans, how do you know Senator Brown? When the Quitman 10 were arrested for alleged voter fraud, Senator Brown was instrumental in giving the Quitman 10 and the citizens of Valdosta some relief along the lines of justice and media exposure, along with the examiner out of Macon, Georgia, Mr. David up there. When we journeyed to the Georgia Capitol with some of the Quitman 10, Robert Brown, or Senator Brown, was there. We met, took pictures, and dialogue in the state capitol. We went to the floor of the General Assembly and we listened in. Me, some of the NAACP, the president of the SCLC, Reverend Rose, but Senator Brown was the key force to draw attention to what had happened here in Brooks County. It was Senator Brown who spearheaded and came to Quitman, Georgia, along with Tyrone Brooks, David Lucas, Helen Butler, and others, to try and put a face on poverty and election disenfranchisement of voters. But you don't know nothing about that, because the South Georgia news media, including the Quitman Free Press and the Valdosta Daily Times, and all television stations made sure that nothing was reported. Senator Brown also was instrumental in having the Quitman 10 to go to Savannah, big rally in Macon, came back to Quitman with nearly 200 people. But all was a whiteout here in South Georgia because South Georgia don't have a news media that is sensitive to the black African American and the poor white citizens' experience and problems. In my most humble opinion, and I'm available to be challenged even on national news to see and examine what historical facts do I base that upon. CNN, MSNBC, none of those major news media networks came when we had civil rights heroes and sheroes to journey to Quitman. In fact, we have had a whiteout of the G.B.R. allegedly intimidating the citizens over in Brooks County. CNN didn't care. Nobody seems to care. But Senator Brown cared. And so regardless of how Senator Brown died, more importantly to me is how did he live? How did he live and what did he stand for? Did he respect freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and the right to vote? Did he stand for that? And if you ask the citizens in Brooks County, they will say yes. Yes, yes. Because when the news media would not tell the citizens in Brooks County's story, Representative Tyrone Brooks, Representative David Lucas, and others gave a listening ear to what's going on throughout the South concerning black African Americans' right to vote, concerning the disrespect of the president, the 44th president of the United States of America. A new precedent has been set in the United States of America. And Senator Brown addressed that issue, that no president in the history of this United States of America has received the negative comments and threats as President Barack Hussein Obama. He was not afraid, nor did he punk out under pressure. And so I came today to stand before this flag of the United States of America, where we all, black and white and Christian and Muslims and Jews and others, have all gave their blood through sacrifice, that this republic will still be standing. Senator Brown was disrespected here in Brooks County, disrespected in South Georgia in general, but he is and always will be in the archival record of South Georgia on Boston G.B.R, on kbci.blogspot.com. We will make sure that Senator Brown received the recognition that the South Georgia news media should have given him in the Serenity Museum, as well as Valdosta Museum and the library in Quitman. We will work to see that done because he stood with the oppressed people at this dispensation. And now I want to close this note out to the family of Senator Brown. Our condolences go out to you. And we say to you, don't be ashamed. Hold your head up high. We don't know what was in that man's mind, but there's one thing we do know, because I have it on video. He talked about what was happening with the black-faced people, and that we still has a long ways to go. He addressed that concern publicly, but the South Georgia CNN and other news media outlets, not only in Georgia, but across the nation, ignored the great words and the connectiveness he gave to the Quitman 10. The Quitman 10 that everybody seemed to be ignoring, including 60 Minutes, 48 Hours, and a host of others. They are ensuring that the whiteout continues. But there are some of us that will continue to fight until truth becomes a real reality in the United States of America. And so we close by saying to you, we do what we do because we love the United States of America. And when you love America, you will work to make America a better place to live and raise your children. This is kvci.blogspot.com saying to you, bye-bye, we gone. And to the family of the late Senator Robert Brown, thank you for coming to South Georgia. When they tried to ignore us, you were there. Thank you, Representative Tyrone Brooks, David Lucas, Helen Butler, Miss Ruffins, Reverend Joseph Lowry for sending your group to Valdosta. Bye-bye. We go.
And so it was. And so it was. And yet, today marks the 12th day of the highly disgraceful case against Miss Lula Smart. And the Quitman 10+2 saga continues. We must wait now, and we'll see what God will do to relieve the pressure of these outstanding Brooks County citizens. They have done nothing wrong. The people who investigated them, they know the truth. And we who have been in the courtroom for these last 12 days, without any news media coverage, we see what the real deal was. And yet, it seems as if though a tree fell in the forest, and the news media telling us that the tree never fell and that the forest does not exist, simply because they never went into the forest to see the problems facing the black man, the black woman, and their children sitting beneath the tree. They witnessed the tree when it fell. They know the forest so well, but yet the scribes of this dispensation across this nation will not report the truth. And so in the eyes of the world, they are looking at us and they are saying, free press what? Freedom of religion what? They are asking a question now. Don't get mad with America. Don't get mad with her. Don't get mad with your neighbors. Don't get mad with different political parties. But just thank God. Praise God and be thankful for what's written in the volume of sacred law, the sacred volume of sacred law. Remember that. Be thankful. Because the Bible said there's nothing hidden that will not be revealed. And therefore, sooner or later, the entire world will look out into the field. And they'll say to America, and they will say to the nations of the world, you are not, let me repeat, you are not what and who you claim to be, but who you prove yourselves to be over a given period of time. And God has given America much time, if not too much time, to prove to the world, do you really mean freedom and justice for all? Are we really a nation of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all Americans? Do we really mean it when we say I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, not one political party, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, not just for those who are in the clique and among the slicks and various legal fraternities? Well, the late Senator Brown saw something, and he opened the door to a new reality. But the scribes, as they were in Jesus' day, they thought that they could keep truth from you because they know, like Jesus knew, and ye shall know the truth, for the truth shall set and make you free. And because those who oft to see the wizard don't want you free, they want you to take a trip to see the wizard. But what they don't know is that as it was when Dorothy and those went to see the wizard, it was a little dog that pulled the curtain down, and all of it was exposed. America, America, America. The lights will go out on you unless you change your ways.
And to get it back in 1965. So equipment is the bellwether issue for today. For
SCLC, Marstello.
Doesn't feel like it do.
A friend,
doesn't feel like it does it.
brother,
I asked
retired military veteran.
Jackson, I said, now, how did you get close to Dr. King? And he said, well, nobody in line. He said, Dr. King was the most hated man alive, and nobody was trying to get next to him during the time we got next to him and was walking with him. Today we are here equipment. Nobody's sniping at us. Nobody's threatening our lives. We're on a picnic walk for now. But there's going to come a time when there's a reckoning. And we're close. We're close to a reckoning in America because people have decided that you won't participate in America. They've decided you won't have jobs in America. They've decided you won't hold office in America. And you and me, we've sat by as though nothing is going on. They paid $5 and $10. Bought a few of our politicians up, a few of our spokespersons, put us on the sidelines. We've gone there and sat on the sidelines, but these folks stood up and quit. And I promised them in June that I was going to stand with them all the way to the end. If they call, I'm coming. If they call, I'm coming.
And even when he came with nearly 200 people at the old schoolhouse, they came, and they came. But the news media was not there. It was a total whiteout again. And so we have to understand, we shouldn't blame ABC, NBC, the radio stations. Any of those people, we should not blame them. Please do not blame the major news media networks. We got to blame ourselves for not setting up our own TV stations, our own radio stations, and our own newspapers. And so now that we have cameras and smartphones and iPhones that should see us and our problems and our news, don't expect anyone to do for you that which you are unwilling to do for yourself.
If they call, I'm coming. Why am I coming? Because I believe in what they're doing. I believe if they'll put their life on the line, I'll put my life on the line. We got to equal up. G.B.R. has violated their civil rights. The civil rights, or the voting rights bill, Section 5 was violated. Section 5 was violated. Thank you. We're going to have to register more folks to vote. again. And put more folks in office so that we can make the difference. That's what we're going to have to do. We got to show them that it doesn't matter what they do, what dogs they send, what G.B.R. officers, what sheriff they send. Doesn't matter. We're still going to do what we must do. All right. All I'm saying today, Quitman 10 plus 2 plus however many more, I'm with you always, even unto the end. God bless you. God keep you. All right.
Over this state, he's probably got 1 million miles on that car. Ed DuBose is one of the most loyal, committed freedom fighters I've met in my life. When we started the movement in Monroe on the Morris Ford Bridge, he said, Tyrone, I'm going to be with you. He's been there every single year since 2005. The marches on the bridge, the reenactments, whatever with the Troy Davis case in Savannah, he and I and Benjamin Targellis rode together. We strategized on the Troy Davis case. Ed DuBose is there. We love DuBose. But we want you to know, brother, we're going to be with you no matter what you're doing because you've always been with us. Please welcome the state president of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, Brother Ed DuBose from Columbus, Georgia. Are y'all fired up? Are y'all fired up? I don't hear you. Are you fired up? Are you fired up? That's some law enforcement officers upstairs. They need to hear you. Are you fired up? Are you fired up? Are you fired up? No justice. No justice. There's some law enforcement officers upstairs that need to hear you. No justice. No justice. No justice. Let me first of all, before I get started, thank our good friend George Brown. I'm going to tell you why. I want you to remember Boston G.B.R. Anytime we don't get mainstream media, go to Boston G.B.R. and you will get the full story. Anytime we get mainstream media, they'll hear a little bit of what you're saying, soundbite it. Go to Boston G.B.R. you'll get the whole story. Let's give it up for this brother out here telling the story.
And now let's give it up. And now let's give it up for the founding fathers of our great republic who set forth these fair laws, even though they may not have been intended for the black man, woman, and their children. But above all, let's give it up for the Quitman 10 plus 2 and all the other freedom fighters who took their religion from 4 walls of a church building, 4 walls of a mosque, beyond the 4 walls of the masjid in Islam, beyond the 4 walls of a synagogue in Judaism, before the 4 walls of those who are atheists, and took their heartfelt love into the streets. And many of them bled, suffered, and died to make this nation the envy of the world. And if today's preachers, rabbis, pastors, evangelists, ushers, Congressional Black Caucus, NAACP, SCLC, Urban League, G.B.R, I see you, but you don't see me, organizations. If you sit by and watch the Voting Rights Act torn apart in the state of Georgia under leadership of Republican Governor Nathan Deal and Secretary of State Brian P. Kemp and his investigator Glenn Archie, then what can we say about the dream of Dr. King? What can we say about the work of the great founding fathers of this great republic when we sit back and will not embrace the Quitman 10 plus 2? And we won't say nothing when the news media will report about the crime in the street, and they'll report that what they want on their beat. But when news is about the future of our children,
the education of our children, and justice under the Southern Judiciary in the state of Georgia. And we don't say nothing. We play the ostrich head duck game. We bury our head beneath the sand like the legend concerning the ostrich bird and proclaim that we love Jesus. We proclaim that we love Moses. We proclaim that we love Muhammad. We proclaim that we love Allah. We promise our congregations that we want to give them proper instructions how to get them from earth to heaven. But we can't get them in the courtroom for 12 outstanding citizens, 11 because one have deceased. And yet we say and do nothing but placate and duplicate and imitate the leaders of yesterday while we remain silent. Silent. And so I want to thank the Honorable Tyrone Brooks for standing strong. Yes, for standing strong. Standing strong for the cause of justice. And above all, I want to thank God for this man, Tyrone Brooks, as well as Marstella, as well as the Honorable Edward Dubose, former president of the NAACP.
This state, he's probably got 1,000,000 miles on that car. Ed Dubose is one of the most...
Let him close out once again, as he mentioned the Ghetto Free Press, because we didn't start doing this yesterday. Oh, we may not be getting the praise from the civil rights organizations. We may not be seen on the world stage. I'm barely even in the picture. But that's okay. It's not about being in the picture. It's about being in the mix. So when the cake is laid before God and man and our children, you can rest assured that in the archival record of God, the work that we do for the betterment of man and the betterment of this nation will be seen. Well, we'll close this out. I won't say anything else, but I will say to you, bye-bye. We gone.
Committed freedom fighters I've met in my life. When we started the movement in Monroe on the Morris Ford Bridge, he said, Tyrone, I'm going to be with you. He's been there every single year since 2005. The marches on the bridge, the reenactments, whatever with the Troy Davis case in Savannah, he and I and Benjamin Targellis rode together. We strategized on the Troy Davis case. Ed Dubose is there. We love Dubose. We want you to know, brother, we're going to be with you no matter what you're doing because you've always been with us. Please welcome the state president of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, Brother Ed Dubose from Columbus, Georgia. Are y'all fired up? Are y'all fired up? I don't hear you. Are you fired up? Are you fired up? That's some law enforcement officers upstairs. They need to hear you. Are you fired up? Are you fired up?
Before I get started, thank our good friend George Brown. I'm going to tell you why. I want you to remember Boston G.B.R. Anytime we don't get mainstream media, go to Boston G.B.R. and you will get the full story. Anytime we get mainstream media, they'll hear a little bit of what you're saying, soundbite it. Go to Boston G.B.R. you get the whole story. Let's give it up for this brother out here telling the story.
Once again, this is the Ghetto Free Press, and I'm George Boston Rhymes. YouTube, Boston GBR. BostonGBR@gmail.com. Bye-bye. We're gone.
Lee Smith, raise your hand. Johnny Smith, raise your hand. Where you at, Johnny? Black presidents, raise your hand. All over, black presidents. Yeah, we got some leadership out here. We even got the Lawrence County Youth College chapter out here. Let me recognize our president here in the county, Brother President Zurich. Is you with us? Where you at, brother? Come stand over here. This the leadership inside the corner. Anytime you got an inside game, you got to fight. We thank you for your leadership.
Right across this bridge, not even 20 miles away, Tallahassee is dealing with the same thing. Things like the Tallahassee 8. A little bit further down in Madison, Florida, they're dealing with the same thing. And so here we are in Georgia, in the deep south. They call this a Dixiecrat. We gonna show them what Dixiecrat means after we finish fighting down here. That's what they call themselves, the Dixiecrat, the unmoving group. And so here you have the Quitman 10. I love my shirt. I feel like when I open this up, I can fly. I'm serious. You see these pictures on this shirt? Sometimes I can get on top of that.
Sometimes I wonder about this, brother. Let me repeat. Sometimes I wonder about talking about flying.
Things like the Tallahassee 8. A little bit further down in Madison, Florida, they're dealing with the same thing. And so here we are in Georgia, in the deep south. They call this a Dixiecrat. We gonna show them what Dixiecrat means after we finish fighting down here. That's what they call themselves, the Dixiecrat, the unmoving group. And so here you have the Quitman 10. I love my shirt. I feel like when I open this up, I can fly. I'm serious. You see these pictures on this shirt? Sometimes I can get on top of that deal and get fly with this shirt on. Because let me tell you why. The Quitman 10, it was Quitman 10 when I came last plus 2. I had to ask the question, where did the other 2 come from? And they told me they had rounded up 2 more. But let me tell you what's significant about this fight. They have demonstrated, like Dr. Lowry said, something that we've been fighting for all along. Not how to cheat an election, how to do an election the way it should be done. And they have demonstrated courage. And after all the speeches that we put on, it's going to require some action. When Tyrone says it's time to come back, we're coming back. If Brother Zurich and Paul said we need to come back to prepare for Tyrone's comeback, we're coming back. Because these sisters have shown, and brothers, have demonstrated the courage of Joshua and Caleb. When everybody else said the land was no good, Joshua and Caleb said we can take this land. That's what they demonstrated to us. They demonstrated the courage of David. When everybody else was scared of the land, they said just give me a few rocks. They demonstrated the courage of Daniel in the lion's den. They don't care how high the battle is. They recognize that God can close the mouth of the lion. They demonstrated the 3 Hebrew boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and a bad Negro. Don't cut me up, Moses. Somebody on the phone with the last name. They got close to the fire and in the fire and recognized in this fight that even if he don't deliver me, I know he can. And some folks keep talking about the small crowd. Well, let me tell you something about small crowd. God used Gideon to demonstrate the power of small crowd. God narrowed the army down to 300 good soldiers. But they just weren't anybody. They had to be tested. Because he understood that if we went into battle with the majority, we would be foolish enough to think that we won the battle. But if we go into this battle outnumbered, the G.B.R. on one side, the district attorney on the other side, the local police on the inside, the Klan meeting behind the scenes, the police officers up top, he knew that if we get into battle this way, and we took the battle, we would forever praise God for the victory. This is a spiritual fight. Yes, it is. But a spiritual fight requires work. Yes. Don't sit in your house and say, God gonna deliver the battle, you ain't doing nothing. Even the Bible says, faith without works is dead. Don't pray for me, work with me. in my friendship with him, it don't matter how big the county is or the crowd. In fact, I met Tyrone in Taylor County with a crowd of about 20. And I said, what is a man of his stature doing in a small town in a church with no air conditioning, with 20 people? And I realized then that this is a man of God. It don't matter how many people see you. If there's a need, he's there. That's why I say give it up for Tyrone. See the Clinton again. I'm telling you all, man, my spirit moves so much when I see this group. When I see this group that the governor and the G.B.R. and all of the powers that be are determined to break them. But every time you see them, they smiling. Ain't that something? Ain't that something? They brought the full weight of law enforcement in town and trying to intimidate the community, but the equipment 10.2 was still smiling. It should subpoena everywhere and brought the governor in and took him out of office. But the equipment 10.2 was still smiling. There's something strange about that. They think, I believe it's because equipment 10 understand like David understood it. The Lord is not lighting my salvation.
This is the Ghetto Free Press, and the Equipment Free Press, the Valdosta Daily Times, and other southern newspapers may ignore the Equipment 10+2 and the trial with Lula Smart, but it is indeed amazing that a newspaper called The Informer came to Brooks County and reported on the Lula Smart case and have a picture here that took place at the Brooks County School Board of Education. And we must say once again that we must learn how to report our own news, and once again this is the Ghetto Free Press. They are covering what is taking place in the courtroom here in Brooks County, and today is the 13th day of this trial, Lula Smart, and we are out right now on break. Something strange continues to happen in this particular case. We want to thank God for the Informer magazine, and I think that Informer possibly need to come down to Valdosta, South Georgia, and do some investigative reporting on the issues down here, because it seems as if though the story in the Black African American community are not being distributed to the people in the state of Georgia and other places around the United States of America. Once again, this is the Ghetto Free Press. I'm George Boston Rhines. Get a copy of the Informer, be educated, and understand that our news seem to not be their news. But when they want us to fight these wars, we are one. Bye-bye. Well, what would you like to say about the court case today?
Hi, my name's Gloria Tatum. I'm from Decatur, Georgia. I've been following this case for a couple of years now. And to me, it seems like that there was a massive G.B.R. investigation, a month-long trial of Lula Smart, and they're charging voter fraud, but it seems like that there's no crime here. So all of this money and resources have been spent for 4 years, and there's no crime. It's people who lost power, who are upset, and to me this is just another part of the voter suppression efforts going on nationwide, because certain entities don't want a lot of people voting, because when people turns out and vote, they don't win. So.
But one other closing thing. What do you think about, if you have comment on this, why do you think after 14 days, no news media, no TV, radio, why do you think it's like that?
The same reason so many other issues aren't reported. The news media is corporate owned and profit-driven by elite individuals, and this is not the only issue that's not reported by the media. There's a lot of issues not reported by the media. This is just another one of them, because the news is censored, and it's controlled, and it's corporate-owned, and
so the last thing, this is my last question, there we'll go. I know you got to run, but I want you to think short form. What are we to say to Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, and other nations of the world who are looking up to us because we've always prided ourselves in freedom of speech, freedom of religion, etc., etc., etc.
Do what we say, not what we do.
Thank you very much.
You're
That's
welcome.
very good. Thank you so much. Thank you. Today is September the 15th, 2014. And this is the Ghetto Free Press. I'm George Buster Ryan, the voice of the people. We just heard on MSNBC from the Honorable Al Sharpton that Secretary of State Brian P. Kemp was caught on record, caught on tape, making statements about how blacks and minorities are registering people to vote. And if we are not careful, you get the message? So I'm saying to you, you will hear more about that. But I want to say to all of the American people, especially to Eric Holder of the Department of Justice, now do you see why you need to come in and investigate the Equipment 10 plus 2 4-year ordeal along the lines of absentee voting fraud? What are you waiting on, man? I said it once before, and I'm going to continue to say it. This is the same problem that the newly elected black mayors in the state of Georgia are going through. It's the same reason why we have had 31 jail deaths in the Valdosta and Lowndes County Jail from 2009. Let me correct you. From 1994 to 2009. Let me repeat again. Valdosta and Lowndes County are leading the state of Georgia in jail deaths. From 1994 to 2009, 32 jail deaths. And from 2009 to 2014, we don't know how many jail deaths, because it is just like what I guess Secretary of State Brian P. Kemp thought was top secret, but the word got out that he cannot oversee the voting rights process and the right to vote when he himself, well, let's put it like this, knows about Lester Maddox, knows about Bull Connors, knows about the theology of George Wallace. And so we must call on the Justice Department to follow up with Al Sharpton of MSNBC and the tape that he played about what the Secretary of State said. If the Secretary of State, and he did, Brian P. Kemp, made those statements, then Lula Smart, that is on trial in Brooks County today, marks the 15th day that she has been in court. Not one radio station has reported it. Not one newspaper, including the Valdosta Daily Times in the metro city, not even the Quitman Free Press, have been in the courtroom a single day. And we are not in Russia, we are not in China, Afghanistan, Pakistan, or Iran, but where we stand here in the state of Georgia, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, they say. Wake up, people, wake up. Secretary of State Brian P. Kemp, Georgia Attorney General Sam Olens was found guilty, according to the newspaper, and must pay $10,000 for covering up evidence in a case. So what is happening here now? But yet our outstanding 12 citizens in Brooks County are in their 15th day with Lula Smart trial, and not one news agency have reported anything. It's like what I've said before. There's a tree that fell in the forest. They say, or they tell the black community and the white right community that the tree never fell and that the forest does not exist. And the way they get away with that is because they go behind closed doors with their friends and do what Secretary of State Brian P. Kemp done, apparently according to Al Sharpton and MSNBC, and then they shove that down our throats. And then on top of it, because of the news media, whiteout machine that are in control of your mind, they don't say nothing about it. Can you imagine 31 jail deaths in Valdosta and Lowndes County and nobody says nothing about it? When The Honorable Judge Hugh Lawson found 105 violations in the Lowndes County Jail in 1989. Then he ruled in 1997, June to be exact, and he issued an order to the county commissioners and the Lowndes County Sheriff Department to come in compliance in 2 years. And do you not know that those violations was never corrected? And when the civil rights organizations asked the Sheriff's Department, the District Attorney David Miller, yes, David Miller, in writing, and Sarah Crow, who was the clerk of the court then, who complied with that court order from Judge Hugh Lawson, and they failed to provide an answer even under the Georgia Open Records Act. Then, haven't finished yet, the Civil Rights Organization wrote the Honorable Judge Hugh Lawson and asked him who complied with his court order. And he said nothing. And so now we've had all these people to die because our government is crumbling right before our eyes while we go and join the United States Armed Forces, willing to die for foreigners, but not willing to die for our own children. And so Al Sharpton and MSNBC, we all thank you for doing a little investigative reporting and reporting about the voting right president in the state of Georgia, Brian P. Kemp. And you know what I've said about his investigator, Glenn Archie, that went to Brooks County at a meeting and didn't get back with the people to even say boo. Didn't say boo. It was the governor of the state of Georgia that removed the Quitman 10 from their elected positions on the Brooks County School Board of Education. And then to look at the Quitman 10+2 case and see what the G.B.R. did, to see what the investigators did from the Secretary of State's office, Brian P. Kemp, is a disgrace under our form of government. And we gotta thank Al Sharpton. We must thank that beautiful American citizen for telling the truth. This is the Ghetto Free Press, and I'm George Boston Rhymes, doing what I do because it must be done. Well, today is another day, the 14th day of this trial. The state just rested their case, and now it goes to the defense, Shaveen King. On behalf of one of the Quitman 10+2, Lula Smart. Now, after 14 days, I have a question for you all. The taxpayers in the state of Georgia does not know what has taken place in this very high-profile voting rights case, because no TV station, no radio station, no newspaper have reported anything that took place in the courtroom, because we who attended didn't see them in the courtroom. I have an individual right here, Brother George, just like myself. He has been coming over here, and I wish other people in Brooks County would attend this very high-profile case. Now I'm going to ask a question. The 10+2 case that started in 2010 is the new Ferguson after the Ferguson. And so now the question is, what will the Congressional Caucus say when they stand up to tell people around America and around the world, for that matter, that they care about voting rights? How can the Democratic Party say they are concerned about voting rights and your right to vote the Republican Party, the Independent Party, the Green Party, and even you. And one more. All our active duty, retired, disabled, and ordinary veterans, how can they say that they are concerned about voting rights in their particular states, but yet they cannot even Google the Quitman 10+2 and educate themselves at what Representative Tyrone Brooks is calling a new landmark foundational case along the lines for voting rights in the United States of America. But it seems as if, though, in the state of Georgia, our leaders, Governor Nathan Deal, Secretary of State Brian P. Kemp, Georgia Attorney General Sam Olens, and not even Eric Holder of the Justice Department, because we sent, when I say we, not me, but the concerned citizens of the state of Georgia, under the leadership of the Honorable Reverend Joseph Lowry, the Honorable Representative Tyrone Brooks, former Georgia State Conference President Edward Dubose, on behalf of Charles Steele of the SCLC and Mostella, we sent Eric Holder 2 DVDs, and you can see that on within the next 5 to 6 videos that's already posted. In fact, you will see Secretary of State Brian P. Kemp's own investigator who came over to Avery's church. I recorded it all because I was there. They gave complaints. I gave them the DVDs. I signed the release form for my DVDs, and the Secretary of State still haven't responded to those videos, nor the valid complaints by the citizens of Brooks County, nor has he answered questions about J.C. Cunningham, who was running for state rep. And so it seemed as if though the Secretary of State is not even concerned about voting rights here in the state of Georgia. And since we sent these DVDs also to the Justice Department under Eric Holder, we haven't heard nothing from him. We also sent DVDs, to change the subject a little bit, along with Representative Tyrone Brooks, to Eric Holder about the murders at Moore's Fort Bridge in 1946. So now I'm going to continue to do what I do because it must be done. We all can't play the ostrich head duck game. And that's when we bury our heads in the sand like the legend concerning the ostrich bird and pretend that we are in heaven while we are catching hell. And our children, grandchildren, and coming generations are going deeper into hell because we don't stand up like we should. Look. This is the Ghetto Free Press. It's not about this video. I want you to watch the other hundreds of videos on this playlist. This playlist didn't start last month. This playlist started in 2010 when I got the call about them being arrested. And it's all been documented. You don't have to guess about it. It's all been documented. I walked the streets. The 84-year-old woman in Marvin says she would never, ever vote again because of the way the G.B.R. intimidated her. Eric Holder, you know about it because you got a copy of it. Once again, this is the Ghetto Free Press. George Boss around saying bye-bye. Here you go. Okay, what are your name?
Hi, I'm Jody Williams, and I'm with the People Agenda Criminal Justice Committee out of Atlanta, Georgia, headed up by Dr. Joseph Lowry.
Something took place in the courtroom that got your interest, and you want to share that with the American people?
Sure, I do. What has caught my attention is that some of the charges that they are charging Ms. Smart with have been taken off the books as long as 2 years ago. And they're charging her with crimes that are no longer on the books, that you can no longer charge someone with. So I really don't understand what this is all about. And then they've already dropped 7 of the charges because it has nothing to do with anything Ms. Smart did, which the agents who did the investigation found no crime that she committed. So another concern is, why are they wasting the taxpayers' money with this drawn out court case which has no merits? So that was my interest today.
Okay, can you possibly, if you want to, share with me what is your analysis of why there's no news media? We're in the 14th day of this trial, and not one news media outlet, whether it's radio, television, or newspaper. Why do you think they're not here?
Well, there must be some unwritten something that these people don't want this widespread, any of this to get out, because this is how they're handling when blacks win elections. They're doing whatever it takes to have them removed, and then the governor would sign off on something like this. It is a shame. He should have done his investigation before signing off on something like this. But to me, it's all about having blacks removed from office.
Do you think that by the state of Georgia, the G.B.R., the district attorney David Miller, and assistant attorney Brad Shealy, and along with the Secretary of State's office, do you believe that this whole saga with the equipment 10+2 and all these charges that we are finding out now is almost like zero? Do you think that that will stop people from voting, or do you think that would energize people to vote more? What do you think? What's your opinion on that?
Well, my opinion is, and going back to when they went into the people's homes, knocked on the door with their badges and their guns in their holsters, telling them that they wanted to ask them some questions. One thing they did not let the people know, that if they didn't answer the questions, no harm would come to them. No arrest, no trouble would come to them. They didn't make that known when they approached the people. And as a citizen, a black citizen of the state of Georgia, it bothers me if someone approached me with a gun and a badge requesting that I do something. You know, if I didn't know that I didn't have to comply, I would try to comply even if I didn't want to, because I wouldn't want to be in any trouble. So I know older blacks, and most of these people were older blacks. They're frightened by law officials with guns that frightened them. So of course they was intimidated and threatened by the officers who knocked on their doors with no warning.
How did you take the repeated questions by the defense to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation agents about their training? Most of them had never done an absentee ballot investigation. Why do you think the state would send amateurs down to investigate something as serious at this dispensation as voting fraud along the lines of voting rights for black African Americans?
Well, I don't understand why they would send unexperienced people when the Secretary of State has their own agents and investigators who could have readily did this. And I do know by experience that one of the G.B.R. agents have in other cases threatened people, have even set them up, have even arrested people so that they could get information or intimidate them into giving false information. So I do know that firsthand. Miss Amy Braswell tactic, and one case in particular is the Reginald Rayshawn Shriver's case, a dog fighting case, which she picked up, who was considered a state witness in a drunken state, and intimidated him and badgered him into making false statements against another person who was in that trial.
Now, this is the Ghetto Free Press, and I wouldn't want you to make a statement that is not true. Now, what you just said, you know that's true?
I know that to be true. I was in on that particular case. Okay. I was acting as Mr. Shriver's advisor in this case.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other, you want to close us out with anything in particular?
I just want to tell the people, keep voting. Get out to vote. Make your voices heard so you'll have a stronger platform in any decision making in your county. So get out and vote.
All right, that's a good message. Once again, this is the Ghetto Free Press. George Boston Rhymes, doing what I do because somebody got to do it. Get ready, get ready, get ready. Once again, we're here at the Brooks County Courthouse, and we have the youth here. And I love to hear young people speak because they are the voice of today and tomorrow. And what's your name?
I'm Summer Williams.
Okay, and what organization are you with?
I'm with the People's Agenda.
Okay. And what do you want to share with us today?
I wanted to share with you how I think they're really unjust with this case and how they keep trying to bring back evidence against her and some also making up evidence and bringing up people who don't really even know what they're talking about onto the stand to try and convict this woman who most likely has done nothing wrong but just gotten elected and won an election against a Caucasian or European American. And I'd also like to say that I don't think it's right for them to do something like this, especially as a African American teen who has to grow up and then vote, and then after I vote for someone and they win, they get put out of office based on their skin tone. If their skin tone is like mine and I vote for them, of course I'm going to want them in office. I'm not going to want them to like having to go into court several days rather than doing their job, which I voted for them to do. And now we have these other people who they ran against in the seat they were supposed to be in, probably making things worse. There's a reason they were voted in, and it doesn't make any sense for you to try and put them out of office when the people of Quitman or the people of this city voted them in the first place.
Let me ask you a question. Yesterday, I interviewed Representative Tyrone Brooks and Clyde Bradley. We was over on the other side there. And I noticed that the Honorable Tyrone Brooks had some wristbands on, just like I have. And I see you have some wristbands on. Can you tell me why you wearing those wristbands on your arm?
These? Well, it basically says love has no color. Because on Facebook, I'm a part of this page that supports different races' marriages. Okay. Because I know as a black teen, when people ask, oh, why are you I hang out with a lot of Asian Americans because I speak their languages. And so people always ask me, oh, why are you hanging out with them rather than hanging out with people who are actually from America? And I said, well, these are like my family members, so I love them, and love has no color. And when I see people get mad at black women for not dating a black man, I think it's kind of unfair when they'll praise a black man and they're not dating a black woman. So that's why I wear this. And this is actually really guilt towards Asian man, black woman, because I feel like they're the most ones when it comes to black women getting a lot of hate for it. But not just black women dating black Asian men, but black women dating white people or any race that's not their own. It's always like, okay, they're supposed to date this one race. They can't just love anyone they want. So that's why I say love has no color.
Thank you very much. I guess you kind of deep there, and it all boils down to you love who you want. It's none of my business anyway. Peace be unto you. As a young person, I really appreciate you, girl. And where you go to school at?
As of right now, I go on to a online high school.
Right.
But it has like a school, but the classes are kind of full right now.
Okay.
So I go online, and it's called K-12.
All right. Thank you so much. Peace be unto you. Hope to hear from you again real soon. Greetings. This is the Ghetto Free Press, and I'm George Boston Rhines. Today is the 15th day of the Lula Smart trial, one of the Quitman 10+2. Yesterday, the state of Georgia rested its case against Lula Smart, and now it goes to the defense attorney, Shavine King, and Tiffany Simmons out of Atlanta. I thought I would redo or repost footage of the same investigator that went out on the streets and allegedly intimidated people in Brooks County. But before that investigation took place, well, let's put it like this, before it was ended, these citizens made valid complaints to the Secretary of State, Brian P. Kemp's office. This is Glenn Archer, the man that was the agent that was on the stand yesterday from the Secretary of State's office. And he is an investigator. And you're going to see him take complaints, listen to the citizens, yet nothing has been received back from the Secretary of State's office. I think 2, 3, or 4 elections have taken place, and yet the Secretary of State, this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about proof. I'm talking about documented evidence that something is wrong in the state of Georgia when it comes to black African American having a right to vote, casting their vote, and having their votes counted. Listen to this investigator from the Secretary of State's office in Brooks County at Pastor Avery's church that you've heard me reference. Once again, the truth is in the pudding.
There's nothing again in anything I've read that said a person must have a driver's license or a picture ID to get a sample ballot. Again, what I want to make plain and clear is that that's another form of intimidation, whether it was meant to intimidate or not. It was a form of intimidation. What I would like to see in this investigation, it's never been my my cause to have anyone terminated or anyone going to jail. My thing is that everyone has a right to vote. And everyone who is eligible has a right to register to vote. And when you do anything to impede that is paramount to voter suppression. And
just to get a sample ballot.
That should not be allowed. And that's where I would like to see this investigation go. See, I think when the investigation is truly looked at, beyond
Cunningham, the state representative, he running for state office in Brooks County and Thomas County, and he had interest in
that we have a person
fair election.
A very, very important job and has a very important position, but he is not trained to do that position. And that cannot be allowed, because when we allow someone who's not trained to be in a position like that, and just
now we have learned that the Secretary of State sent people out and G.B.R. agents went out to investigate. We now know this as a result of being in court the first time, second time, and third time, that there were agents from the G.B.R. who had never done an absentee ballot investigation. So why would they send untrained people to do an investigation? Yesterday, even Glenn Archer said he was unfamiliar. All this has been documented. I took my notes. And of course, when the transcript come out, Anybody can check this. And this is why all the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, the Independence Party, the Green Party, and your party should check out the justification surrounding the arrest of Equipment 10 and then the other two, which making it Equipment 10 plus 2, the removal by Governor Nathan Deal of these outstanding citizens from the Brooks County Board of Education, and then to have them arrested for doing nothing as we have seen in the courtroom, and they are still kicking out reasons why they have these outstanding people in court. Yes, they are dropping some of the charges as we speak.
To two comments that I just points I brought up, then what happens is people get mixed and lost in the system, and that's not right. Everything starts with the Board of Elections as far as our rights as citizens to affect the laws of this land. So if they get stopped there, if one person is missed there, then the whole system is wrong. So somewhere along the line, I believe the Secretary of State's office needs to come in and relieve, be it temporarily or whatever, Mr. Collins or the Brooks County Board of Elections of their duties and responsibilities into someone who is trained properly and assigned off so that the citizens of Brooks County can be confident that each one of their votes are going to be counted, and that everyone who wants to register or whoever who has the ability to register will have that ability.
It's also, I need to interject here, that this meeting right here with Glenn Archie from the Secretary of State, Brian P. Kemp's office, he came here because there was a meeting at the Brooks County Board of Elections that had not been announced or publicized in the paper. When we got there, Nancy Dennard asked probably 30 or 45 minutes into the meeting, are you all going to approve the agenda, the minutes? Do you have a recording secretary? These were valid questions that was asked at that meeting. You had people that made valid complaints at that meeting, and that meeting is what brought about this meeting. The other meeting was not publicized. It wasn't published in no news media outlet, but I was there. I was called there that morning, and I rushed over, and I started my camera, and I recorded it. And you can see all this on the Equipment 10 plus 2 playlist. And this is why I will continue to say that the people in the United States in positions of government, leaderships in government, apparently does not care that much about voting rights here in the United States of America. Not even some of our civil rights organizations and the Congressional Black Caucus, because if they really cared, along with the news media in Brooks County, the state of Georgia, and in the United States of America, very few talk show hosts. It seems that is some of our national and international leaders, TV talk shows with all the clout that they have, that they would have been in the courtroom to bear witness with this unbelievable situation where 12 outstanding people have suffered for too long without any reason whatsoever, outside of the fact that for the first time in Brooks County's history, the work of the Equipment 10 plus 2 generated a majority black voting power on the Brooks County Board of Education. Listen, please.
You want to also do a statement?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I've already done one statement on the website.
How long ago was that?
The day before the last Board of Elections.
Okay. So you actually did it on our website and submitted it to Atlanta?
Yes.
Okay. Would you mind doing another one?
Sure.
Okay.
We now know that there's serious problems in the Secretary of State's office, and they don't follow up on the complaints that are filed. I have gotten complaints from Willacoochee, Georgia, another area wherein the same investigator, Glenn Archie, went there. I got it all documented. Though that particular community called me about an investigation that was done there, and they never got back with them as well. So all this has been documented. I would never accuse anyone whatsoever unless I had the facts to back it up. And so I'm asking Eric Holder, if you see what I'm saying, if you want the document, we already have sent you some tapes. We've sent you some DVDs, but we got a lot more and live bodies that can tell you what happened the day the G.B.Rs and the investigators from the Secretary of State's office terrorized the citizens and intimidated the people there in Brooks County, and some of them brought it out on the witness stand. And you don't have to take my word for it. All you will have to do is review the transcript for these 3 trials. It's all been documented. That is, if we can trust the transcript. Because if you ask Shannon Watkins, she say even the transcript in South Georgia in some court cases are being altered. Now you can take that up with her. She'll be glad to talk with you, Eric Holder. She'll be glad to talk with the Georgia Attorney General or anyone else about her 14-year-old girl that never received any news media coverage. She gave the news media coverage what happened to her daughter, and yet she couldn't find nobody that would cover her story, not even CNN. Listen, please.
Was it the 16th of June? July? Is that what it was?
Can I make another statement?
Yes, sir.
It's not on that one, but I don't think that we...
This is James Maxwell. James Maxwell is a county commissioner, and I want you to listen to him. And I want you to know that we've had approximately 3 elections since this time. And do you not know that the people in Brooks County called me and said, Rhymes, when is the Secretary of State going to get back with us? They haven't gotten back with the people here yet. And once again, I'm going to say it continuously. People really don't care about voting rights here when it comes down to black people in the United States of America, and especially in Georgia. And this is, I've proven that.
On the night of the election, on the night of the election, the election supervisor was very unprofessional because I know I've been around for a long time. That's right. This is my 5th term, and I've never seen the election supervisor that will go out to the general audience. You understand? And declare, you understand, that we are going to have a runoff before the votes are in. And that's exactly what Mr. Ken Collins was doing. He was saying, well, I know, you understand, that we are going to have one runoff. And people get stunned, saying, well, how can he say that, you understand, when the votes are still coming in? That's what happened. And when the votes, you understand, and the district you were talking about was District 5. That's right. That was a district that we were having all the problems in. What happened? So he assured, you understand, that everyone that was at the strike, the election area that night, he was assuring them that in District 5 we will have a runoff. But when all the votes were counted, there was no runoff. What happened? And to me, you understand, he was very disappointed. But he's supposed to be bipartisan. He's supposed to keep his mouth closed. And that's something he don't supposed to be walking around, out there, among the public and telling, you understand, the people who's running that we're going to have a runoff. That's right. And that's something that he, shall not do. He cannot do. See, that's what he did. We're going to follow up on that too.
Can I just make one comment? Something that I'm really confused about. How can a 501c3 corporation file a complaint? I thought it was, to my knowledge, that an elector had to file a complaint. And I do not understand, especially a 501c3 nonprofit organization being allowed to file a complaint.
I can't answer it. Right, but you address.
And another question. I'm confused about this.
Yes, ma'am.
I mentioned to you earlier that the rules change it overnight for some reasons, but the little legal knowledge that I know, notarized statements. The purpose is to validate a notarized statement. And once that notarized statement is notarized, there cannot be any changes on notarized statement. But my question...
they can be changed in Brooks County and the state of Georgia. And the sad thing about what Ms. Gibbs is saying is that when this was brought to the Secretary of State of the state of Georgia, nothing was done about it, yet we knew that we would have an election coming up. Now I think we done had 3 or 4 elections, and still nothing has been done about notarized statements being changed or altered. I'm saying to everybody, America the beautiful, beginning to look not so beautiful based on documented facts. Documented facts. And the sad thing about it is in the United States, the people who are in charge and who's supposed to oversee our protections to be able to vote will not even respond to the voters, such as this lady here, Miss Gibbs. Wake up, people. Wake up. And we continuously send our sons and daughters to join their armed forces, to put their life on the line, to fight for foreigners, while our rights and the right to vote are being trampled upon.
Is how can you change a notarized statement and it be legal?
Mr. Archie, were you the actual investigator that came down 2 weeks ago and met with the people here in Brooks County?
I was here a couple weeks back, sure was.
Were you provided the film from that Board of Elections meeting?
You're addressing something that's, of course, on the internet, I guess?
Yes, sir.
I can't answer any questions about my investigation. So.
Okay, but my question, were you provided that?
Not only can he not provide anything about his investigation, even the judge said that G.B.R. agents are the worst about answering questions. You will find this in the transcript. I'm not creating this. The people that were in there heard the judge. Judge Gary C. McCarvey said that people do not want to answer questions, and the worst people are G.B.R. agents. And I quote him on that. And so it seems like maybe they just have become a God beside God and they answers to no one. And it's getting sad for the American people as well.
We have made a CD for your office. Did you get that CD?
I have not been given a CD.
Mr. Rhines, we still have that CD?
I've sent it to the Secretary of State's office.
Oh, you have?
I sent it on the web. I sent it to them. And if not, I will give all that information to you.
How do you spell your last name, sir?
Rhines, George Boston Rhines, R-H-Y-N-E-S.
Yes, sir.
Boston G.B.R. is a YouTube for that, but I'll make sure that you get that.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to add at this moment also, we have a lot of voters that are totally confused, and I didn't have time to get all the documents. I will get those to you.
Yes, ma'am.
But the confusion is about the whole election process. For example, in previous years, those people who need assistance in reading,
whatever you hear here, you must keep in mind that this is a Secretary of State investigator from Brian P. Kemp's office. From Brian P. Kemp's office. And yet, at least a year, it's been over a year ago, people asking me, why have not the Secretary of State answered our valid complaints that we put in writing, and why didn't he respond to the problem that was identified at the Brooks County Board of Elections meeting that generated this meeting from the Secretary of State's office? And yet, well, 2, 3, or 4 elections have happened, and nothing, and another election coming up, and nothing has been done about it. Eric Holder of the Justice Department was provided information from Representative Tyrone Brooks and other black leaders in the state of Georgia. And according to them, we still haven't heard any valid answers about blacks being given the right to vote as all other citizens. So wherever the Voting Rights Bill or the Voting Rights Act bill is hung up at, Eric Holder, the Congress, the Congressional Black Caucus needs to go back and re-examine the Voting Rights Act, because we have fought in every great war of this nation, including the Revolutionary War. Crispus Attucks was a black man. He was the first man to die in the Revolutionary War. And so this is taxation without representation and really the right to vote.
And this time we didn't have that. It's the first time since 1965 that people were not allowed to assist those who are not as technical savvy or informed to assist others. And I think I told you I didn't have time to get all the statements in, but I will get those statements.
Yeah, if you could furnish those to me, I'll follow up on that too. I will follow up on that if you give me those statements.
And I understand that Mr. Collins is working to diversify the poll workers and poll watchers. My specific complaint regarding that, I was the one that went to that training in April. Few days after that, I submitted my application to him.
A few days later, she submitted her application to him. Now, don't you think that the Secretary of State, if he's concerned about voting rights, and by the way, I'm going to interview Miss Gibbs, and I'm going to put this up pretty soon. I want her to sit down in front of the camera and tell her updated story, so you can see if what we are reporting is the truth, or if we are just doing what other news media outlets are doing and we're pretending that it's not happening, or we are lying about it. Okay, this is what we're going to do.
For a poll watcher and or poll worker, and I understand that process, but I have not heard or received a response from him today. And my position about that.
This is Glenn Archie from the Secretary of State's office, Brian P. Kemp. He was on the stand yesterday, and he testified.
If he will focus on what we need for him to do as far as an elections board supervisor, then maybe we would not have these problems today.
Yes, sir.
Have you copies of the statements? Have they received confirmation at your office?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
They're very polite.
One of the reasons why I asked about the film, because actually and we're going to provide another CD, I guess, but on that CD, one of Mr. Collins and the chairman of the Board of Elections admitted that they, in fact, changed the notarized document.
Now, notarized document. If that is true, why wouldn't that problem be serious enough for somebody to get to the real bottom of it? I'm saying you had better wake up, especially you active duty military people. You disabled military veterans, retired military veterans, and just ordinary veterans, along with the American people. Y'all had better wake up. It's not about skin color. It's about what is right, and it's about power.
And they felt that was, well, I think her exact words were, well, that's minor. It's not anything, that's not a big deal. Why are we getting upset about those things? Again, I think the quote is, perception is reality. And the perception is that things are done their own way and not done the way that the Secretary of State of Georgia has mandated that it be. And so, again, a whole community or a whole voice of a community is shut down because the perception is their vote's not going to count anyway, because if they can change a notarized document, they definitely can change ballots, be it absentee ballots or whatever else. And I think that's the point that Mr. Maxwell was trying to make, that Mr. Collins made an open remark on the night of the election saying that...
Listen, an open remark on the night of election. This is what Secretary of State Brian P. Kemp have been given. This investigator, Glenn Archie. Now, there's no need of acting funny. I mean, Even what he's saying has already been documented, already been recorded on video and sent to the Secretary of Office. That is the foundation of what he's talking about. It's already recorded, and it has been presented to those who are supposed to make corrections under our form of government.
There's going to be one runoff for sure. When he made a statement like that without even, which everything I read on the website, everything we did in Lowndes County and Thomas County, the absentee ballots that were already in place were counted before we even brought, and that was even something on the website that said was going to be done. Absentee ballots were going to be done first. But to make a comment like that is to almost say that I know what I can do to assure that this is going to be a runoff. Again, it's just a perception. When you say that out loud to folks, then first thing Mr. Maxwell or anyone else within earshot feels like, well, they're going to try to manipulate the process. And again, those, whether it was a joke or whether it was serious or whether it was malicious.
Again, J.C. Cunningham, he was running for state rep. He has to be above reproach on anything like that. He has to be the most impartial person in the town.
That's right.
And he has done the exact opposite.
He proudly displays that he is a staunch conservative Republican, which negates trust as a Democrat that we will get any type of justice with him. He bends over backwards to assist Republican voters and will do everything within his power to discourage Democratic participation.
When someone in a position of power to oversee the fairness of elections and the election process, and when they fail to answer a citizen in Brooks County's questions that is as deep as this, not to receive an answer should be called out and identified, especially when it's been documented.
In an election process.
Because one of the things that really disturbed me, because when we had all of the mishaps, that's right, in District 5 with the wrong absentee ballot, going out, and my name was nowhere on the ballot, and took a street, you understand, which is Lee Street, which is in the heart of District 5, and that whole street was redistricted, you understand, out of my district.
Redistricted out of his district. This is the Brooks County Commissioner, a long-time serving commissioner in Brooks County. He's speaking. You would think that the Secretary of State or someone else that deals with elections and cared about.
And we went by and worked with Valdosta over there and with the state, and we thought everything was smooth, you understand? And then all of a sudden what happened the day of the election, people in my district went to the poll to vote. Listen. And the same thing. Holland district. Put the little card in there, and there's no county commissioner or no school board. That's right. That came up. So one of the ladies called me up, and she said, Mr. Maxwell, I'm down at the poll down here, but I don't see your name. And I've been voting for you, you understand, ever since that you know. But they telling me down here that I'm no longer in your district. I said, how could that happen? You were in the middle of my district. You understand? Redistricting didn't start in the middle, it started on the outside. Redistrict moves, you understand, on the outside. That's what happened. I spread farther out. I don't come in, you understand, and damage anything within the district. And then what happened, and I said, well, okay, get it straight. Matter of fact, they told her that you need to go in here and cash your ballot. So she cashed the ballot. What happened? One of the guys down there, you understand, inexperienced, that's right. This young man, that's what happened.
They said inexperienced, and we watched Secretary of State investigators came down. It's all going to be in the transcript.
It all is in 2 of the transcripts. The G.B.R. agents that investigated said on the witness stand after being questioned by Shaveen King, they had not been trained in absentee ballot investigations. And so it seemed as if, though, there are a lot of people that need training. And maybe that's why the equipment 10+2 is in the predicament that they're in, because just maybe they were the professionals and they went out and used absentee ballots within the law.
Yes, they hire him, you understand, coming from one of the stores here and put him directly, you know what I mean, in the hall that precinct. Didn't even know, I don't think he even had any training. But tell this voter, you understand, well, you're not in Mr. Maxwell's district, so you need to go and get on and cast your ballot. So that's what she did. But anyway, now, let me tell you this now. My next door neighbor, that's right, Henry Williams.
His next door neighbor. Now, when I was coming up, Mr. Maxwell and the Shepherds and the Jody Smith and Rosa Miles and the Livingston Plantation, that's where I was brought up at. So I'm very familiar with that area. I drove out there and I recorded that area where he's talking about. I recorded right there on the corner from Maxwell's house. So all of this stuff has been documented and it's been presented online. Some of it have been sent to Eric Holder, to the Secretary of State, and once again, nothing.
Right next door to me, out there in the country, on Hickory Head Road, where the voting precinct is, on the corner of Hickory Head and Brewerville, okay? This young man went to the polls, got rid of the vote, put the card in there. My name didn't come up. And so Henry told them, said that, well, I don't see Mr. Maxwell now. And one of the workers said, well, you're not in Mr. Maxwell's district. He said, well, how can I not be in Mr. Maxwell's district, one of his next door neighbors? What happened? So then we had, that's right, another young lady down there, that's right, said, wait a minute, let me get this straight. Now, this is my next door neighbor. You see that? And so what happened? So now you know what seriousness we had some serious problems. What happened? That when your next door neighbor, you understand, that's right.
Commissioner Maxwell said we got some serious problems. Not serious enough for anybody to really address it in a way that the citizens in Brooks County would know about it, and nothing published in the newspapers, on television. It was like a tree fell in the forest, and then they told us the tree never fell and that the forest does not exist, and we've been living in the forest for decades. Wow.
And y'all profit and everything, John, and you good for anybody. And then he goes, man, I didn't see your name. What happened? So those are the problems that we had up until the time of the election.
Date of the election.
Date of the election, not up to that, but date of the election, you're right.
Mr. Arch, you know, the thing is, I think this whole thing could have been resolved if there was more concern about the civil rights of the folks of Brooks County was paramount instead of everything being talked about equipment 10+2. See, every time.
This is a clip right here I've added from the actual meeting that created and gave a base for the other meeting with Glenn Archie from the Secretary of State's office. This meeting here was at the Board of Elections. I was called that morning. I rushed over because they said, Brother Rhines, this meeting was not advertised as required. They don't have a secretary. As I rushed over, the meeting was already in progress. But I rushed over there to make sure, because they told me that the news media wasn't there, so nobody was going to report what was going wrong at this meeting. And just so happened that I recorded that meeting, which the Secretary of State received through this investigator, Glenn Archie. Yet, like J.C. Cunningham talk about why did they put all this pressure about the equipment 10+2 when there's major problems with the Board of Election and they are over the whole system in the program.
The Board of Elections to talk was always this thing of, well, we got to make sure everything is above reproach because of equipment 10. And again, I believe that equipment 10 plus 2 is a sham anyway, but that's just my opinion. And had folks been trained in the Board of Elections properly 2 years ago, there would never have been a such thing as equipment 10. But there was so much emphasis put on the negative from the past that was brought about because of lack of training that no one bothered to it. They were so busy making sure that we were dotting every I and crossing every T to ensure that we were doing absentee ballots properly, that no one ever bothered to go look at the Board of Elections. You see, in this film that you're getting ready to get, the state law says that we must adhere to sunshine laws. That Board of Election meeting was called. It was not a secretary there. They did not use proper Robert Rules of Order. There were, matter of fact, they didn't read, the minutes weren't even approved until an hour after the meeting had started.
Listen, this is what I've been telling you. This is what was sent to Georgia Secretary of State Brian P. Kemp. We have these videos. We have that meeting recorded. This meeting went to a lot of places that should have been concerned enough to send investigators down immediately because we had an election coming up. But guess what? They putting a lot of emphasis on the equipment 10 plus 2. But since then, we've had 3 or 4 elections and nothing that the citizens in Brooks County have received, and nothing has been published in the newspaper or on television or spoken of on radio about what Mr. J.C. Cunningham, a state candidate for representative, is talking about.
The law says that every public meeting must be recorded. There was not one stroke of a minute taken by either Ken or the chairman of the Board of Elections.
Now, he could be lying. And so I'm asking anybody in the United States of America who would like a copy of that meeting. I will send you a... No, you don't even have to do that. Just go to Equipment 10 plus 2 playlist and you can watch it all. It's all on internet. And the Office of Primary Responsibility, they already have copies of it.
And even then, it was admitted that, well, we haven't had that much training. So again, this investigation shouldn't even be at this stage right now. Everyone should have been trained properly, or they should be in that position. And we wouldn't be talking about this right now. Mr. Collins knew those ballots were wrong. Deb Cox at Lowndes County, I physically called her. She called Ken, explained Ken how to get those ballots right. There were absentee ballots that were sitting in Ken's office for 8+ days. Requests before he sent the ballots out.
So the question is, what was done about it by the Secretary of State's office? If he would provide this video and he'd know about this through the complaint system, what was done? The people telling me nothing. Now, don't get angry with me. Thank God for me, trying to live up to the founding fathers of our great republic. And as a retired military veteran of 21 years, I took an oath and obligation to defend this country from both foreign and domestic enemies. And anybody that come up against the American people, whether it be black, white, brown, yellow, or extraterrestrials, if they say they're American citizens, can prove by documentation, we should stand up for them, as well as our children, grandchildren, and coming generations of children. Listen, please.
Sent one ballot out wrong 3 times. On the last time that he sent it, Deb Cox told him to overnight the daggone thing because the kid was in Maryland and was no way he could get it back here in time. There was no sense of urgency when it came to ensuring that everyone had the right to vote. So, how do we ensure that we're going to have a partial and fair election in November? I have no confidence in the Board of Elections. We have no confidence on the Board of Elections, and I think that the only thing we can do now is ask that the Secretary of State's office truly listen to our complaints and ensure that we have someone in place to ensure we have a fair election in November.
And we thought that the Secretary of State's office would do something. And after this meeting and waiting, we found out that, well, listen, please.
The reason also we started the NAACP in this area because of the previous election violation.
Now, Mr. Zurich saying the reason they brought in the NAACP because of previous election. Listen, all this has been documented. Secretary of State already knows about it. And now the world knows about it. And they just watching us in the state of Georgia. And thank God for the people who care enough to try to make Georgia a better place to live for all of its citizens.
So we started this organization, the Civil Rights Organization, to ensure that people's rights will not be violated. And we were going to look into everything and make sure that everything was proper and in place. The problem with the Quickland 10+2 is a prime example of why we need an investigation in the election board. We need a thorough investigation because these people are doing exactly what they want to do and not what is best for the citizens of Bush County.
Can I get your name again, sir?
Ronnie Avery.
Okay, sir.
Well. And this is the way the story goes.
And not what is best for the citizens of Bush County.
Can I get your name again, sir?
Ronnie Avery.
Okay, sir. A-V-E-R-Y?
A-V-E-R-E-T-T.
Okay, I'm sorry.
He's trying to get information from
And
Pastor
also,
Avery.
there has been a systematic attempt
Miss Gibson.
in this entire region to solve our
Miss
work
Gibbs, listen.
and our concerns and our complaints. This began in 2010. You're the first person, I believe, that we've had an opportunity to talk to this.
Wait, here 2 weeks ago?
Mr. Marshall, I'm on the board of the
Yes, sir.
Conservancy. Like Mr. Cunningham is saying, there should be an investigation in that office, and I'm not talking about just for the present. You need to come in and see as far back as the past and some things that was in there that was done. Since I've been a member of that office, it's been a year, there was a box, a nice sized box that came from the old registry. Not Joy Collins, but what's Miss Look, first name? Miss Bell. She sent a box to me. It was a pretty sized box. It was full of a lot of voter registration information. And some of that stuff that people should have been registered. And not sure if it was registered, but just found the rubber band in the box. Things like that from the past. What I have realized with the absentee ballots on this election is that they was calling people to let them know that they ballot, there was something wrong with their ballots. And I understand they were doing this as a courtesy. But
You must understand that this individual is on the Board of Election, but yet he can't take it anymore. So he's really speaking ill of his own board.
Look at the ring book, the ACOG or the G's. I can't remember that code book, the ring book. It states in there, if there's a question about anyone voting rights, it must be something done in writing. And the liaison for this area, I think her name is Rose, she's telling them it's okay if they call. But who's to say they call everybody? You know, you made a phone call, there's no tracking that says that you made everybody, but it says it should be done in writing. And anytime you're supposed to do it in writing, it should be a copy in the person's file, what you mailed out to that individual, and what date you mailed it out to them, a date stamped on it. If you call an individual, you have nothing to show that you called.
And I understand they say they're doing it as a courtesy, but it's no paper trail with a phone call. So I don't know why she's allowing them to make these calls, which you can get a person in quickly, but still, like I said, there's no paper trail with a call that you call as an individual. I might have 10 and call 2, and that means 8 people is not receiving an absentee ballot. I don't know what's going on, and then by the time it comes to the vote, they're not sure to go report or wait for a ballot.
Well, we not only found out that there's no paper trail and there's no documentation in the Board of Elections and what they do with the Brooks County voters, how they treat them in terms of accountability and what is actually done that can be backed up by documented facts. We found out during these trials that these agents, investigators that came down, was not documenting, were not recording the actual comments from everyday Brooks County voters. And when the black voters got on the stand, and the reason I'm saying black because 98% of the people they investigated that submitted absentee ballots were black, and we do know that whites submitted absentee ballots as well, but they were not investigated. All this came out in the trial, but you don't know nothing about that because there is no news media to tell you about it. You don't know, for instance, that the first trial that ended up a mistrial had 2 blacks on it, and it was a mistrial, and the second one was a mistrial and only had 1 black on it. And of course, this trial coming up now, the number and the focus of the ratio of black and whites have not been published to any degree in the newspapers or on television, but I'm reporting it. There was 6 and 6, and I understand the state prosecution didn't like that, but then another person on the jury got sick, and now it's 7 blacks, and and that's the ratio of the makeup. And so we're going to close this out, but I just want you to know the truth, because St. John 8:32 says, "And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set and make you free." And so we have been doing this. I have been doing this. Same way with the black mayors. I see the same thing over and over again. I see people being killed by law enforcement officers across the state. And when it comes down to, but that's okay, because eventually, all this is going to change. Oh yeah. Don't think it's going to remain the same. There is something about the God of our ancestors. He's always been on the side of truth, justice, and right. And in the end, God will win, along with those who love Him.
But there are some things that need to be looked at, and Mr. Cunningham is correct. That office fully needs to be trained. As a board member, only training we had as a board, we went to Kennesaw State, and we was trained on how to do LAs and do parts of the machines and this and that. At GEOA, at B.R, it wasn't a whole lot they taught us there. Just some of the things we have to watch out for and what to do in the past. Honestly, how to form the board, how to bring the board to a meeting, or what are we doing in the board, it has not been taught to us yet. I have not seen the regulation, how the board actually should be run. I pretty much had to get on the county commissioners because you're trying to get me to do day-to-day operation. And if I'm down there and a problem arises that makes me as a board member part of that problem, how can I come in there and be biased to that situation? A board member should come in neutral, not seeing what's going on. And what I'm saying on that is that you have a board member in the office working when the situation took place. And quite naturally, you're going to defend your office. Because when I came in to hear what was going on, it was that the individual voter was wrong. I worked with the public for years as a letter carrier. Customers are always right. You can show them documentation where they're wrong. Nothing to show to that customer, that voter, I say, where she was wrong and what she was saying. Because everything she quoted Mr. Collins on is pretty much that she was right.
And that's the way it is. Bye-bye. We're gone.